Hello everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome to my channel. Those of you who are returning, welcome back. Those of you who are brand new, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I am a licensed therapist. I'm also an author working on my first novel. And on my channel, I like to dig into what I consider to be the heart of writing, the characters. The heart of the characters is in their psychology, because that determines everything we do. So that's what we dig into on my channel, from world building to character building to tropes, everything that falls in between. So today I have a book review for you guys. So I actually have quite a few books I still have to do reviews for, but I thought I would start with this one because it's one I legitimately really enjoyed, and that is The Lord of Long Shadows by M. Anderson. So I actually just stumbled across this one. I haven't seen it advertised very much. I haven't really heard much about it. I believe it was released in August of this year, if I recall correctly. I happened to catch it on one of those free days, so I downloaded it for free, and I would have paid for it, honestly. Once I started reading it, I really got into it and I really enjoyed it. So I'm trying to get more info about it out there because I think a lot of people are unfortunately missing it. So, what is the basic plot of The Lord of Long Shadows? So, the basic idea is that a girl from our world, from the United States, is whisked away to a fantasy land, and she discovers along the way that she has abilities in this world that she wasn't aware she had and she doesn't have in her regular world, and that she is part of not necessarily a prophecy, which I much appreciated that she wasn't part of a prophecy, yay, but that she is now involved with the people of this world who are struggling against a tyrant, essentially the Lord of Long Shadows, among other tyrants. So, as always, I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys that you wouldn't get spoiled by reading the back of the book. As with all my reviews, I'll give you guys what I liked, what I think needed improvement, what I thought was unique, and I will give you guys a psychological rating. So, first and foremost, what did I like? The world. The world that our main character, Alex, enters is really fascinating because most of the time in a fantasy world, at least of the books I've read as of late, the world's very similar. Like there might be a few identifying traits here and there, but overall it's like, okay, well this is like, medieval Europe, or this is like Japan or whatever. Not so much in this world. There are very distinct areas. There's a port city, there is a desert, there is a swamp, there is a forest, there are various villages, there are strongholds in stone, there are old citadels. It's very varied. And I enjoy that because no matter where they were going in the story, I was enjoying going with them because I got to see this world and I wanted to see more of it. So I really hope I get to see more of this world in the future. Another aspect that I really liked, the way the characters talk. Each character has a very distinct way of speaking, and I don't necessarily mean that like their accent is written out or anything. It's not like that. Just even without looking at who was talking, I knew who was talking. And I think that's very important to do with your characters. And this author does it very, very well. Just the way that they interact, because Alex, like I said, is from our world, and she's thrust into a fantasy world that is essentially based in a medieval type of setting. And they don't shy away that she knows and talks about things that these people are just plain don't get. And it can actually be very humorous, but they don't do it so much that it becomes bothersome. It's just something that kind of pops up every now and then. Like one of the things that pops up a lot is she mentions baseball and teaches them what baseball is. And so occasionally they'll try to make references to it, and most of the time they get them wrong, and I love it. I think it's done very well. Um, let's see. I've kind of talked about the characters in general. The villains. Mm, I love these villains. This is one that I mentioned in my top 15 villains video, and it's for good reason. There is not just one villain in this, there are multiple villains, and we get to meet several of them, and they all have their different traits and understandings and things. But the thing I like the most is they're all very smart. I can't find a dumb villain in here. And I really like that because I love smart villains. I love villains that are very calculated, take their time, figure out, trick people. Those are the kind of villains I like, and those are the kind of villains that are in here. Um, because I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, I'm not going to go into detail about what makes them smart, but they're smart, they're calculated, they know how to mess with the heroes. It's fun. So, what are things I think could use improvement? Um, the main thing I think there's a prologue that is very interesting, and then you have the beginning when Alex has to get to this new world. I just think it drags on a little too long. Mainly because you really just need to establish what her lifestyle is and what her personality is before she's whisked away to this new world. And I just think the author spends too much time in quote unquote our world when some of the traits and elements they bring up about Alex could be established once she's in the fantasy world. So to me, it just dragged on a little too much, and I'll be honest, it dragged on enough that I put it down for a little bit. But I am thrilled I picked it back up. But just so you guys are aware, the beginning does drag on for a little bit, longer than it should. Not so much that I think it ruins it. Like I said, I did still pick it back up and finish it, and I'm really glad I did. Once she gets to the fantasy world, it really picks up. It gets very interesting. The environments become very interesting. But before that, there's this brief period after the prologue and before she gets to the fantasy world that's just, it drags. And I think that could really use some improvement. What are some other elements? I think the other main element that kind of bugged me a little bit is, I'm going to say some of the formatting of the ebook was a little off. I'm not real sure what it was. It made it kind of awkward to read sometimes, but I think that's kind of nitpicky. But my main complaint is just the beginning drug on too long. Like I said, once it gets to the world, the pacing is very, very good. So I just think the beginning really drags it down. What's something I found very interesting about it? Platonic relationships. Oh, how I have missed thee. Oh Lord. Those of you who've watched my other videos, platonic relationships are my thing. I love them to death, and I don't see them enough. This book has them, and it has them done very well. They're built up, they grow, they argue with each other, tease each other, get on each other's nerves, but they love each other, and you can tell. And they don't have to verbally say it. I like that too. When you don't have to spell it out for me, it's very obvious. So it gains a lot of points just by having that, because I want to see more platonic relationships in books, and this one has it. So that being said, psychological rating, what would I give it? Okay, so in this case, there isn't so much a psychological disorder or anything like that that's going on. There is mention of grief, and then of course there is the trauma of being thrust into the middle of a war. That's always fun. So I think the book, and as a general rule, does handle it pretty well. Alex is an adaptable character, which is what you need for this kind of adventure. Um, but she doesn't adapt instantaneously. I mean, she takes time to figure out, okay, here's where I'm at, here's what I need to do, how am I going to do it? She does have periods where she wonders if she hit her head, if she's drunk, things like that. And I like it when they throw that in there because honestly, if you were to wake up in a completely different world, first thing I would wonder is what did I eat? How much did I drink? Am I still asleep? And they address all three of these. Um, so in that sense, I think it's done very, very well. There is also instances where there is loss in this story. I won't say how, but there is some loss, and I think they do address it pretty well. There is a period of grieving. There is a period of depression, anger, but they still have the characters continue on and continue doing what they need to do. And I like that because in this kind of situation, you would have to do that. But that doesn't mean the emotions go away, and they don't treat it that the emotions go away. They just treat it as they have to handle what they have to handle, but here's what they're going through emotionally. And I like that. So, all in all, I'd probably give it 4 out of 5 stars on the psychological realism scale. Because, like I said, there isn't a ton of um, psychological issues that are brought up that I can address, at least not yet. I have a feeling there's going to be some in the next book if there's a second book. But the ones and issues that are brought up, I think, are addressed fairly well. There is no misinformation about them. I think just the right amount of time is focused on them. So, 4 out of 5. As for the book itself, 4 out of 5 stars. I wouldn't consider it a 5-star book just because of the small things that I mentioned earlier, but it's definitely a recommended book, especially if you like portal fantasy or just a good old fashioned adventure story. I definitely think you should check this out. I've left a link to the Amazon listing in below, as well as a link to my Goodreads review if you guys want to look at that. So I hope you guys will give this book a chance and give the author some love because, like I said, I haven't seen it advertised very much, and I really think it should be. So until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. As always, leave comments or suggestions below. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss when I upload. And I will see you guys in the next video.